Hello friends, today we are going to deal with active voice and passive voice. First let us take the example of active voice. The boy ate an apple. Here the boy is the subject, ate is the active form of verb and apple is an object. So here the subject, the boy, is the doer, means he is doing the action. So this is called as active voice. Now friends, let us take the example of passive voice. An apple was eaten by the boy. Here the subject is an apple. And apple is not a doer of the action. So this is called as the passive voice. In passive voice, the subject is merely the receiver of the action. Now friends, let us see how an active voice can be converted into passive voice. This can be done in 3 simple steps. How? Let us see. Let us take one example. Ram ate an orange. Here, Ram is the subject. Ate is the active form of verb in simple past tense. And an orange is the object. Now step number 1. Interchange the position of the subject and the object and let the subject now become object and vice versa. So step 1, an orange comes in the beginning and Ram is at the end of our sentence. Step 2, here the active form of verb, that is ate, which is in simple past tense, we have to convert it into passive form. But we have to take precaution that the tense is not changed. That means passive form of verb in simple past only we have to choose. And that is was eaten. So we have to introduce was eaten instead of ate. Now step 3. An orange was eaten. After the passive form, add by word. So our final answer is an orange was eaten by Ram. Here friends, one must remember that once the interchanging is over, means the object has become the new subject, the verb will change according to new subject, but the tense will remain the same. Here, an orange has become the new subject. So we will have to give the verb according to or suitable for the new subject. Orange राम को खा नहीं सकता, इसलिए ate word will not do. Instead of that, we have to choose was eaten, keeping the tense same. Friends, we already know that when we are converting active voice into passive voice, the verb has to change its form and the active form of verb has to be converted into passive form without changing the tense. Friends, when we are converting active form of verb into passive form without the change of tense, this chart is going to be very helpful to us. I advise you to take out a print of this chart and put it on the wall in your room. And every now and then go on reading it. It will serve 2 purposes. First of all, you will remember different types of tenses, and secondly, The conversion from active voice to passive voice will become a child's play for you. Friends, now we will see how the active voice can be converted into passive voice in cases of interrogative sentences. Now here also the 3 steps have to be observed. Let us take one example. Who killed the rat? Now, who is the subject? Rat is the object, and killed is the active form of verb in simple past tense. Now, as per the step 1, we have to interchange the subject and the object. So, the rat, which is an object, comes in the beginning of the sentence, and who, which is the subject, goes at the end of the sentence. Now, the rat has become the new subject and who has become the new object. Now, step number 2. Initially, the active form is killed. Its passive form will be was killed. So, we have written the rat was killed dash who. And now we come on step number 3. The rat was killed, we introduce word by who. Now once again we read this sentence and we ask ourselves, the rat was killed by who? यानी क्या अर्थ क्या बनता है? रैट को कौन ने मारा? कौन ने मारा इज रॉन्ग. हम बोलते हैं किसने मारा. सो इंस्टेड ऑफ हु वी आर गोइंग टू इंट्रोड्यूस बाय whom. So our final answer is going to be the rat was killed by whom. Now, for the sake of introduction of sophistication, little sophistication, we can topsy-turvy this sentence, isn't it? Instead of writing the rat was killed by whom, we can write by whom the rat was killed. Now, let us take one more example of interrogative sentence where we have to turn active voice into passive voice. Did you break the glass is in active voice. Here, you is the subject, glass is the object, and did break is the verb in active form. Now, as per the step number 1, we will have to interchange the object and the subject. So now, the glass comes in the beginning of the sentence and you go at the end of the sentence. Here the glass has become the new subject while you has become the new object. Now let us come on step number 2. Now the active form of verb was did break. While turning into passive form, it will become was broken. The subject in the initial sentence was in between the two verbs. So now the new subject also has to go in between the two verbs. So now the sentence will be like this. Was the glass broken dash you? So finally, we come on step number 3 where we have to introduce byword. So we introduce byword after the end of the verb. So the sentence becomes now, was the glass broken by you? Now friends, let us see how the active voice is converted into passive voice in case of imperative sentences. We know, friends, that in imperative sentences we are ordering or we are requesting or we are advising, and therefore the words which we will be using are advised, requested, or ordered. Secondly, we also know that imperative sentences can be affirmative, that is positive, or negative. Let us take one example. Drop it immediately is an imperative affirmative sentence, means positive sentence in active voice, and we have to turn it into passive voice. So for arriving at the answer, we will have to divide the answer into two parts, first half part and second half part. And in second half part, we write the entire question, that is, drop it immediately. Now, next step. Here we are going to fill up you are advised to in the first half part. And lastly, we are going to join first half part with the second half part, and therefore our answer for imperative positive sentence will be you are advised to drop it immediately. Now let us take the example of imperative negative sentence. The example is do not touch the switch. ये नो वाला सेंटेंस है ना, उसको बोलते हैं नेगेटिव सेंटेंस. सो डू नॉट टच द स्विच is in active voice and we have to turn it into passive voice. Again, let us divide the answer in two parts, and in the last part, that is second half part, we will introduce touch the switch. Do not नहीं introduce करेंगे, just touch the switch. And the next step is going to be, in the first half part, we are going to introduce you are advised not to. So when we join the two parts of our answer, we are going to get you are advised not to touch the switch. Now friends, let us see what types of questions can be asked in the H.S.C exam of Maharashtra state. If you see this particular page, you will find that there are 4 questions, and out of these 4 questions, the first 2 questions show the directions which are very straightforward. Means in question 1 they are saying that change the voice. In question 2 they are saying find out the correct passive voice sentence. So we immediately come to know that these are the questions based on active voice, passive voice transformation, isn't it? And hence we can apply the rules which we have already covered on previous pages. But look at the directives given for question 3 and question 4. Question 3 and 4, they say that rewrite the given sentence by making the action more prominent. Question 4 says that rewrite the sentence by making the action more dominant. Prominent and dominant, one and the same thing, isn't it? So when they say that make the action more prominent or more dominant, one thing we must realize that what they want us to do is change the active voice into a passive voice sentence. Now this particular page tells us rewrite the given statement beginning with its end part. Means end part को beginning में डाल दो. What does it mean, friends? It means that if the sentence is in active voice, turn it into a passive voice statement, and vice versa.